So, gaming as a hobby started really early for me. I remember being 4 years old. I vaguely remember waking up on a Saturday morning, prancing my little feet downstairs, finding my aunt holding an NES controller, and getting up right beside her and picking up the second controller and playing Super Mario with her. And by the time I was 6 years old, I got my first original Xbox. And fast forward a little bit, in the end of sixth grade, vanilla World of Warcraft was popular. And I remember getting together with all of my friends. There was about 10 of us. And we would go to each other's houses and we'd watch each other play World of Warcraft and we'd play World of Warcraft. And what's even more important is all of my friends' parents also played the game. And all of my friends' parents would play with us. And there's kind of this culture of gaming, this culture of World of Warcraft that existed when I was finishing up the sixth grade. And I'd even go to church, and people at church would be playing the game, and I'd meet up and trade gold with people from church. And it was a vibe. And so gaming was always something that wasn't even culturally taboo or stigmatized when I was growing up. And by the time I got to high school and I joined the football team, I remember all of the varsity kids, all of the linemen would play World of Warcraft with the coach. For the sake of this video, we'll call him Coach Louie. And Coach Louie would get together with the linemen and they would raid together. And what was hilarious is that if the lineman made a mistake during the raid, he would punish them with push ups during practice. And so, you know, there was never really this stigma around gaming when I was growing up until I got to college. And by the time I got to college, suddenly there was a stigma. Suddenly you couldn't play games. If you played games, you were a loser. How could you play games? And I was thinking about this. And what I think created that shift was this air of competition that comes with adult life. Adults tend to be petty. They tend to compare each other on how, you know, wonderful their spouse might be, or how their spouse looks, or how much money their spouse is making, or how much money they're making, or how big of a house they live in. You know how adults are, what they do for a living. And so, this pressure to really start adulting up, which started cropping and rearing its head in my life when I was in college, really started to create a situation where, because people were competitive with each other, they didn't want to be seen as gamers. Because if you're gaming, you're not working. If you're gaming, you're not being productive. And if you're not being productive, well, you're a loser. And so there's this stigma around gaming that really happened in my life, starting with college. And where did this idea come from? I think this idea kind of trickled from on up. You have the older generation, the boomers, who would consume boomer media like Fox News, and you'd always see articles and you'd always see little clips with headlines like, "This gamer ruined his life playing World of Warcraft. His mom is devastated. Wow, look at all these losers playing all these games in their mother's basement. Wow, gaming is for losers." And so there's this stigma with people who probably didn't grow up with games, who kind of have that idea and that perception of video games that then go ahead and impart it on their children. And, you would think that this is something that would go away as more and more generations are born, but I haven't seen that to be the case because I know Zoomers who had the same situation. My brother is one of them, where we would grow up and we'd play games together and we'd have a good time together. And some of my fondest memories with him were playing video games. But by the time he hit college, no, we can't play video games anymore. That's for losers. All my friends will think I'm a nerd if I play video games. And so he stopped because he would be perceived as someone negative. He would have a stigma around him if he continued. And so now I can't play games with my brother anymore, and it sucks. And I even hear, because they're twins, I have two brothers, I even hear them discussing with each other, oh, like, you can't play League of Legends. That would fulfill the stereotype of a computer science major. You don't want to do that, right? And so this idea exists. And, although I think it trickled up from the boomer generation until now, I don't think it's something that's going away anytime soon, despite the popularity that video games are starting to have. And so that begs the question, why isn't this as stigmatized as something like consuming movies or binging Netflix or watching soap operas? There's almost like a tier list of hobbies that we have in Western society. At the top, you have like fitness, and you have hiking and fishing. And then underneath that, you have like reading literature and watching movies. And then at the very bottom of the list, we have, oh, I'm a gamer, or you have like super nerdy things like, oh, I collect Funko Pops or whatever, right? Things that are considered nerdy, things that are considered weird. And so, is there something about gaming inherently that has it earning its stigma? And I think there's a case to be made for that, that gaming kind of creates a situation where addiction is more likely than being addicted to, say, reading novels or being addicted to, say, watching Netflix. While all of these things can be addictive, you see gaming having a particular nature to do that. And the thing that's particular about addiction is always a symptom, right? It's never the disease itself. So I have a buddy of mine, for the sake of his anonymity, I call him Garrosh on this channel. And Garrosh admittedly says himself that he spends, and he's an adult, he's older than me, he says that he spent so much time, hours upon hours upon hours, achieving things in World of Warcraft, in this virtual world, and having these accomplishments and feeling a sense of pride and ego over his accomplishments in this game. And he says it's because I substitute this for feeling unachieved in real life. And so this is a symptom. What happened first was a feeling of not being achieved. What happened second was the addiction to the video game. And so it's always this after effect that occurs. And so the stigma occurs. And the thing about addiction is, so long as you have your life together, this is the clinical definition of of addiction. So long as you have your shit together, then you're not considered to be clinically addicted. And so what ends up happening next is we have the situation, you become an adult and you enter into work, and unless you're working in IT, you don't want your coworkers knowing that you're a gamer. When someone asks you, what are your hobbies? You don't say gaming, right? You can't say that. Or even worse, what if your higher ups ask you? You can't tell your higher ups you're a gamer. Of course not. And so what happens now is that everyone becomes a closeted gamer. And when everyone becomes a closeted gamer, you don't get to really connect with people in your real life. But what's worse, what adds injury to insult in this situation, is something that we've noticed kind of crop up in the past few years. And that's using the word community to describe online spaces, right? We have the gaming community. We have the, Starfield community. We have the IT community. And what is a community? Linux community. What's that? A subreddit? A forum? What people who go on 4chan? What is a community when it comes to the internet? What is that even? Right? But this is a word that's thrown around all of the time. And I think this cropped up as a consequence of there being these hobbies, such as gaming, that are so stigmatized that no one talks about them in real life. So in order to find like-minded people, in order to find people who you can share your interests and your passions and your hobby with, we do so on the internet. This is exactly what we're all doing. Me first and foremost right now, right on this video. That's exactly what's happening. And so we get these pseudo communities, these online communities as a consequence of this, because no one can just talk about things in real life without being judged. This is the situation we found ourselves in. And so, is there a solution to this problem? How do we solve this? What's there to do about it? And considering the fact that I think a large reason why this has occurred to begin with is because of ourselves with ourselves competing against each other, feeling that sense of competition, feeling like I need to be better than my neighbor and I need to show off whatever I have to everyone around me, people I don't even like, I need to buy things for to show off to them. Because we've found ourselves in this situation so long, as we're constantly trying to put on a facade, which I think has been made worse by social media, platforms like Instagram, everyone's showing off a facade, you know. My life is great. My life is perfect. Check me out on the beach. Check me out with my car. Check me out smiling out at this social event. Whatever, right? We put on this facade. And it's no wonder that loneliness is on the rise, that there's a loneliness epidemic because everyone's putting on a front. Everyone's trying to put on a front. And so long as that's the case, I don't see this being a solution anytime soon. And also, like, a lot of people say that while they're at work, they can't talk about it. And some people give the advice, well, you should just suck it up and not care what people think and say how you really feel and just not care if people know that you're a gamer. I don't necessarily agree with that because this can, in fact, dictate your career prospects. It could make the difference between whether or not you're getting a promotion, you know, especially in more conservative industries like the medical industry, finance. You know, if you're in IT, that might be fine. If you're a computer programmer, maybe that's okay. But so long as you're in these more conservative fields, it really can create problems for you. Unfortunately, it is the way it is. And there's a lot of these stigmas we have in society. We're all oppressed by one stereotype or another. And that's really all I had to say for this video. On this channel, we talk about gaming, topics like this, culture. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.